Be smart and pre-order all of your Dragon Ball Figuarts at Big Bad Toy Store at the link in the description down below. Dragon Ball, Pokemon, Kaiju, and more. It's Steven's Toy Reviews. Hello collectors and my chocolate-loving friends, it's Steven here, and I'm bringing you another Dragon Ball Z SH Figuarts review, and this time it is the long-awaited Majin Buu. That's right, we have Buu here finally, whether or not you want him to be a hero or a villain, available for purchase, and this is going to be closer to his Dragon Ball Z design where he is much more chubby than he would be in the late stages of Super. So, clocking in at about $80 here, folks have been wondering if the big pink blob boy here is worth the purchase because, spotty quality control is a thing. Rest assured, folks. Let's take a look to see whether or not he's worth adding into your collection. Looking at the overall package from Majin Buu, he really doesn't have any real standout issue except for one across all units. And on mine, he's got a unique one, which is kind of weird. I'm going to show you that in a minute. It's kind of like a birthmark, if you will. Except for up close and personal, Buu does have a couple of things going wrong with him, and that would be from the paint department for quality control. I feel at about $80, we should definitely have tighter quality control, but if you're not one to really look closely at your figures and just sort of accept the overall image of the action figure that you bought, you're going to be perfectly fine with Buu because I got to be honest, whether or not it comes to sculpt, paint application, or in general how he looks on display, Buu is totally fine. Now let's go ahead and take a closer look at Buu, and we're going to go ahead and start with the default head that Buu comes with, and you know what, that smirk just looks totally fine. Unfortunately on mine, the mouth paint is a little outside of the sculpt marks, but you know what, it's not really that big of a deal, including the little black holes on the head, slightly a bit of a miss here and there, but to be honest with you, you really don't notice it until you're up on it with a magnifying glass. Now, I want to go back to the actual faces on Majin Buu for a second across all three heads. If you look really closely along the face, you can see that there's a seam that goes around them. Now, I think this is because they used one base head in which all of the faces are used on them. So when it came to the production process to make the molds, they just kind of swapped out one face for another, and then it came to the actual molding process and all that fun stuff. I hope that makes sense. I don't want to take too long explaining it because it's kind of one of those things that's either going to upset you or not. Regardless, it's time to move on, and we're going to go ahead and move down the body where you can clearly see on the vest. It looks great. The gold trim around it is phenomenal, which I'm surprised Bandai didn't screw up. Speaking of things Bandai didn't screw up, let's move on down to that M on his belt where it looks great as well. It is perfectly clean and there are no issues there. However, for the belt, this is the one issue I was talking about that is true across unit to unit. Unfortunately, as you move Buu around, the black from the belt may transfer over onto his pink belly, which actually has some pretty nice shading as you maybe have seen so far, or it'll just simply scratch Buu, which is not very good. This is also the area where not only can you see the black paint transfer, I also have a unique issue with my Majin Buu in that some of the actual plastic is missing in this one spot. You can see white spots on the belt. Why? Anyway, for the rest of Majin Buu, let's just go ahead and take a closer look, and I'm just going to cap this off kind of on a negative and a positive end here. As you can see from Majin Buu up close and personal on the arms, for the hands, the gloves, whatever, you can sort of see that there are black dots everywhere, and unfortunately, that's where I mentioned tightening up the quality control issue. Buu tends to just have these random smudges all over him, whether or not it's going to be on some random pink spots, or if it's going to be on the yellow for the arms or the feet, or maybe even some spots on his white baggy pants. You're just going to notice random flakes of different colored paint, or even smudges. So this is going to be something you're really only going to notice up close, but from a distance for the overall package of Buu, it's not going to be that big of a deal. And then just to kind of wrap up for the positive, we do have the cape. Some say that it's not a positive. We'll take a look at that more so in the next section, but to be honest with you, for the sculpt, it's fine. Overall, again, for the grand old package, Buu is great. And if you're really excited to get a Majin Buu Figuarts, really, I don't think Bandai could have done a better job in this area. Alright, so for Majin Buu's articulation, unfortunately, on the objective side of things, it's a little disappointing, but to be honest with you, for the design of Buu, I think they did as best as they could. let's go ahead and start with the head here. We do have the head, which pops in on a ball joint, so this way we just kind of move it around, and then that ball joint is on a hinge, so this way we can move Boo's head around in all sorts of directions, and I think the head is where you can circumvent some of the issues with the articulation, mostly down here. So Buu can look in all sorts of directions, left, right, up, and down, especially when we factor in that neck sculpt is plugged into the body at the shoulders on a ball joint, so that's great. Buu also at the shoulders, speaking of those, does have a butterfly hinge, so this way we can really move Buu's arms in and out. That's fantastic. As usual for the Figuarts line, they plug into the body on a ball joint. Mine are kind of tight, which is okay. Not they're going to snap tight, but just they can be a little difficult to move from time to time, but you know what? That's totally fine. So yes, we do have ball jointed arms, and also the shoulders house hinges. So this way they can move up and down from side to side. We can get nice and happy Buu here. Clearly obvious bicep swivels, which are always nice to see. And as well as obvious, we do have double jointed elbows, which really help to bring out the best of Buu here. So I'm really liking that. Now, what's interesting for the wrist joints, they are ball joints only. So this way the hands can sort of rock around. And normally folks would think, oh, okay, that's not good. But honestly, here for Buu, it just works perfectly fine because of the way that they sculpted the hands. So they kind of did away with one joint, added another, but it still works. Let's just go ahead and take a look at that. So this way you can see exactly what that looks like. So it's literally just a peg that sits inside a little piece of plastic there, and then it's just a ball joint. So you're not going to get the swivel hinge combo that you would standardly get with a Figuarts. You're just going to get a ball joint. And you know what? It just works. Now for Buu, the torso articulation, it's basically just a ball joint, so we can get Buu to rock forward and back, and that's just going to be at his waist there. He can twist and turn from side to side just a little bit, but like I made mention before, he may rub up against his belt, which isn't very good. This is about as far as I would safely turn Buu from side to side, which is okay, you know. So you're going to get some issues with Buu if you want to, like, let's say have him use the Majin Kamehameha, or maybe like do a shoulder bash into someone. So, you know, just keep that in mind. You don't want to push Buu or else you'll get some paint rubs there. Surprisingly, the hips are the Renewal 2.0 style. In the Figuarts line, as you can see, they're just a double swivel combo. So this way you can move them forward and back, left and right. We get plenty of range of movement there. Where the legs plug in here, they are on a swivel. And we do, unfortunately, get a single hinge knee joint. I say unfortunately because some folks just want double always, even though single is perfectly fine here. We do get ball jointed ankles with very, very limited ankle rocker movement. So you're going to have to be creative with that swivel and that knee joint. And of course, we do get a toe hinge as always. Now, moving on to the cape, it's kind of weird. I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice myself here. A little bit of frustration. It is on a hinge, so we can move parts up and down. And then they are on a swivel as well, so we can kind of twist and turn them. So this way, you know, if we wanted to get Buu to have sort of a flowing cape from one side to another like I have in some of the pictures, you can definitely do that. But let me go ahead and just pop one of these parts off so this way you get a good look at the hinge here. That works like that. They also swivel here, and as you can see, there's a little gap behind there. And I'm going to explain why this is kind of a pain in the accessory section, which is coming up here in just a couple of seconds. So let me just see if I can get that to pop back in. Yeah, they can also be a little spotty the first couple of times you pop them in, so just keep that in mind. So overall, Buu's articulation, you know what? It works for what they're doing here for Majin Buu for the design. They were restricted, unfortunately, because of his size, but you know what? At the end of the day, Buu does move, and you can get him into a couple of fun poses, and that's what matters. Now for the accessories, and it is very short, sweet, and to the point for better or worse. Buu comes with in total 3 different heads, 3 sets of hands, and a piece of chocolate. Do take note that the cape is not attached in the box, and it is a royal PETA to attach, but you know what? We'll take a look at that in a second. So let's go over everything, and first and foremost, let's look at the heads. First, we do get the obvious default face where Buu is smirking. We do get another face where Buu is sticking his tongue out. And then we do have the Buu gonna kill you face. So if you really wanted to make a demonical Buu, this is the way to do it. Now, the way to swap them out is you just have to pop the head off. Don't worry, very soft plastic, almost vinyl-like, but reattaching the head onto the ball joint is kind of hard to do because, unfortunately, sometimes because the plastic is so soft and that hole is so tight, yeah, it doesn't want to necessarily pop onto the ball. Oh, man. Anyway, it tends to move the ball on the hinge down, and then it's just trial and error again and again and again. So yeah, it can be a pain, but just keep working it. You'll be fine. Okay, so enough about that. Let's move on to the hands, where Buu does come obviously with the fists. He does come with disco pointing hands, and then he comes with two hands, so this way he can hold onto that chocolate, or this would be closer to his splayed hands, which is really cool. Now, speaking of that bar of chocolate, let's go ahead and take a look at it. As you can see, the paint actually does look pretty solid. On mine, it does look like the paint is all contained in the area where it's supposed to be. Little bit of a brown paint spillage here or there, but you know what? It's not that big, so I'm not going to dock it points for that. Where I am going to dock it maybe half a point, though, is you can definitely see the glue if you flip it upside down and you take a look at it from the bottom, which you're not really going to see, but at the same time, for about 80 bucks, come on, Bandai. Now the cape. I got to be honest with you here, this review was delayed by a day because this took me half an hour to plug the thing in, because the way that it works is you just have one little peg that rests on a knot hinge with a gap behind it, meaning that as you go to push the pegs in, it pushes back on the non-jointed base of it, almost like it's going to snap. Yeah, that was a pain. But once you do get it in, you sort of get a feel for how exactly it's supposed to pop in. You will hear a sort of a click, and once you're able to get it in the first time, you'll be able to do it time and time again. Okay, so to wrap everything up for Majin Buu, he comes with quite a few different heads, hands, and a unique accessory for him that is great. The only issue that I have with this particular release is that he doesn't come with any effect parts. Buu is known to use that candy beam that comes out of the antenna on the top of his head, and I feel like Buu just needed one more head sculpt, whether or not it would be one with the antenna facing forward so he can fire a beam, or maybe something else, I don't know. But if you are looking for maybe some effect parts, so this way he can maybe even use the Majin Kamehameha, check out the card popping up in the top right hand corner of the screen as always, so we can take a look at some other effect parts for you. Now we're going to wrap up this review with a nice size comparison with some other figures you might have, and I do have to say, this guy is quite the big one, and that's a good thing, because he can kind of go toe-to-toe with Broly, which is saying a lot, because Broly is huge. I have to say the scaling is rather proper. So, buy now, skip, or wait for a deal. Overall, Buu looks nice with a couple of small issues here or there. The articulation, unfortunately, isn't as best as maybe it could be, but then again, for the design, hey, he moves well enough. The accessories, I would have to say, match it for the price point. Maybe we could have gotten more, but overall, Buu is definitely a slam dunk success. Now, even though it's a general release, which everyone's saying, don't worry, it'll get reissued in the future, the D-Arts Omegamon, which is a general release, guess what, goes for about 120 bucks, which is more than double its MSRP, and it has not been reissued more than once. So what I have to say here is make sure you get Buu sooner rather than later. Trust me, for about 80 bucks, we are getting a steal here compared to Nappa, which was about 75, smaller, and just not as good of a figure. Buu here is definitely a contender for one of the best Figuarts released this year in the Dragon Ball subline, and I gotta say, if you're on the fence, go ahead and add the big pink blob to your collection today. Well, folks, that's the end of this review. Thanks for watching, and be sure to follow me on social media to catch more behind-the-scenes shenanigans and updates. The end card should be popping up now with more hand-selected STR goodness for you to watch, so check out some of those videos. Be sure to check the description too to see where you can buy this figure or others like it, and some cool links like the credits for this video and other ways you can help out the channel. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch ya in the next video.